Hello, family, welcome to Timeless Tales. If this is your first time watching, please consider subscribing to reach out to more people who enjoy this type of stories, and if you are a returning subscriber, I really appreciate you. Your support means a lot to our community as we grow. Sit back as we dive into the full story. Maya and Sophia lived in a small, cramped house at the edge of a poor neighborhood in Lagos. Life wasn't easy for the two sisters. With their parents gone too soon, Maya, being the elder of the two, had taken it upon herself to provide for both of them. It was a burden she bore silently, but one that weighed heavily on her every day. Their house was barely a home. It had cracked walls and a leaky roof that threatened to collapse every time it rained. The tiny, broken-down kitchen was rarely stocked, and the few pieces of furniture they owned looked like they might fall apart if touched. But despite their dire circumstances, the sisters had each other. Maya, at 26, had given up on her dreams a long time ago. She had to drop out of school to care for her younger sister, Sophia. Over time, she had resorted to working as a prostitute at a junction in the city, a secret she worked hard to shield from Sophia for as long as she could. Sophia, at 21, was in her final year at a public school. She was an optimistic and cheerful young woman who carried herself with a quiet strength. Her beauty turned heads wherever she went, but her modesty always kept her distant from unwanted attention. Sophia dreamed of finishing school and becoming a nurse. But even with those dreams, she couldn't deny the constant gnawing fear of poverty that lingered in their home. One evening, Maya came home pale and visibly ill. Her steps were slow, and her body shivered despite the oppressive heat in the air. Sophia immediately noticed something was wrong. "Maya, what's going on? You don't look well," Sophia said as she hurried to her sister's side. "I'm fine," Maya mumbled, trying to wave her off, but her voice betrayed her weakness. "No, you're not fine. Sit down." Sophia guided her to the creaky sofa. "When was the last time you ate? Have you seen a doctor?" Maya hesitated. She couldn't afford a doctor, and they both knew it. "Sophia, don't worry about me. I'll be okay by tomorrow." But when the next day came, Maya wasn't okay. Her fever had worsened, and she was too weak to even get out of bed. "Maya, I'm taking you to the clinic," Sophia declared. "With what money?" Maya croaked, her voice barely audible. Sophia fell silent. She knew they had no money, not even enough to buy food for the day, let alone pay for a clinic visit. As the day dragged on, Maya realized she had no choice. Desperation consumed her as she called Sophia into the room. "Sophia," Maya began, her voice trembling. "I need your help." "Of course. Anything. Just tell me," Sophia said, sitting by her sister's side. "I can't work tonight. And we need money. For food. For medicine. For everything." Sophia frowned, confused. "What do you mean, work? You're sick, Maya. Just rest." Maya sighed deeply, realizing it was time to reveal her secret. "Sophia, my work isn't what you think. Every night, I go to the junction. I meet men. And they pay me." Sophia stared at her, her face a mixture of shock, confusion, and heartbreak. "Maya, what are you saying? You do that? For us?" "I had no other choice, Sophia," Maya whispered, tears filling her eyes. "We needed money. I did it to keep us going." Sophia couldn't speak. She stood up, pacing back and forth, trying to process everything. "I can't believe this," she said finally. "Maya, how could you? Stop judging me." Maya snapped, her voice suddenly sharp despite her illness. "Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I enjoy it? I did it for us, for you." Tears streamed down both their faces. After a long pause, Maya took a deep breath. "Sophia," she said, her voice calmer now, "I can't go tonight. You need to go. Just for one night. Sophia froze. What? I'm asking you, just this once. Wear my clothes. Go to the junction. We have no money, and I don't see any other way. No. Sophia shouted, stepping back. I can't. How could you even ask me to do that? Sophia, please, Maya begged. If you don't, I'll be thrown out of this house the moment we can't pay rent. And you, what will you do? Starve? Live on the streets? Sophia's mind raced. She felt cornered, trapped in a situation she never imagined for herself. The room grew heavy with tension as she stared at her sister, who lay helpless on the bed. You don't have to do anything, Maya said softly. Just, stand there. Talk to someone. Please, Sophia. That evening, after hours of hesitation, Sophia reluctantly put on Maya's clothes, tight jeans and a revealing top that made her feel exposed and ashamed. Maya handed her some jewelry. These make you look like you've been doing this for a while, Maya said, forcing a weak smile. You'll be fine. As Sophia stood by the door, trembling, she turned to Maya. I'll do this. But just this once. Maya nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. Thank you. Sophia stepped into the humid night, her heart pounding in her chest. The journey to the junction felt like an eternity. When she arrived, she saw a group of women standing by the roadside, laughing and chatting as if this were a normal part of their lives. She felt out of place and out of her depth. Then, a sleek black car pulled up. A man inside lowered the tinted window, scanning the women before his gaze stopped on Sophia. Her nerves doubled when he motioned for her to come closer. She hesitated, looking at the other women, but they just waved her on, some even smirking knowingly. Sophia walked to the car slowly. Hi, the man said with a charming smile. What's your name? She hesitated before replying softly, Sophia. I'm Ethan, he said. Care for a ride? Sophia nodded without thinking. She wanted this night to be over. She climbed into the luxurious car and couldn't help but marvel at its pristine interior. Ethan noticed her nervousness. You seem different, he said. First time. Sophia glanced at him, unsure how to respond. Finally, she nodded. Ethan chuckled lightly. Don't worry. I'll make sure you're comfortable. His words, though seemingly kind, didn't ease her anxiety. As they drove toward his mansion, Sophia tried to remind herself why she was doing this. For Maya. For their survival. When they arrived at Ethan's home, Sophia was stunned by its grandeur. The gates opened to reveal a massive, well-lit mansion surrounded by a sprawling garden. Beautiful, isn't it? Ethan said, noticing her awe. Yes, she replied faintly. Inside, Ethan offered her wine, but she declined. Just juice, she said. He smiled, poured her a glass of orange juice, and they talked for a while. For a moment, Sophia felt at ease. But when Ethan led her to his bedroom, fear gripped her again. Her hands shook, and her knees felt weak. As Ethan moved closer, she whispered, I don't want to do this. I'm just here because I need money. Ethan frowned, but his desire outweighed his empathy. Ignoring her protests, he took what he wanted, leaving Sophia broken and defeated. The night passed slowly. By morning, when Ethan woke up, Sophia was gone. The bed was messy, and her jewelry lay forgotten on the pillow. Ethan searched the house for her, but she was nowhere to be found. As he picked up the jewelry, something stirred inside him, a guilt he hadn't felt before. For the first time in years, his heart ached. Meanwhile, Sophia returned home, clutching the money tightly in her hand, tears streaming down her face. Maya greeted her with excitement. You're back. Maya said, smiling weakly. How did it go? Did you get anything? Sophia handed her the money, saying nothing. Maya's eyes widened as she counted the amount. This is more than I've ever made in one night. Sophia, what did you do? Sophia finally spoke, her voice hollow. Never again, Maya. Never again. Maya laughed, trying to lighten the mood. Oh, you'll get used to it. That's how I started too. But Sophia wasn't listening. All she could feel was the deep, unshakable pain in her chest, one that words couldn't express. The days that followed were uneasy for Sophia. She was haunted by memories of that night with Ethan, her stomach churning every time she thought about it. She avoided eye contact with Maya and kept herself busy with schoolwork. Maya, noticing Sophia's silence, dismissed it as a sign of inexperience in a life she had grown numb to. She laughed it off one evening while cooking what little they could afford. You'll get used to it, Sophia, Maya said, stirring a pot on the stove. It's not as bad as you think. Just think of the money. Look how much you earned in one night. You saved us. Sophia didn't respond. Her hands clutched her notebook tightly, her knuckles white. Finally, unable to hold it in any longer, she blurted, "How can you be so calm about this? It's wrong, Maya. Everything about it feels wrong." Maya sighed and put down the spoon. She turned to her sister, her eyes softening. Sophia, I never said this life was easy. But we're alive because of it. Look around you. Do you think people like us have choices? We do what we have to. Sophia shook her head, tears threatening to spill. Maybe I'll never understand. But I do know one thing, I'll never go back there. I can't. Maya walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. I won't force you. But if there's ever a time you need to, she hesitated, then added softly, don't hate me for what I've done. I did it for you. The words cut Sophia deeper than she expected. She nodded silently, unable to muster any more resistance. Meanwhile, miles away, Ethan sat in his luxurious office, his mind preoccupied with thoughts of the girl who had left his bed that morning. She was different. Not just in her nervousness but in her honesty. There had been no pretense, no sugary lies about why she was there. Just raw truth. She hadn't wanted to be with him, and she had told him that outright. Ethan tapped his pen against his desk, annoyed at how much this woman lingered in his thoughts. He had been with countless women, all of whom saw him as nothing more than a bank account with a pulse. But Sophia, she was different. He found himself wanting to apologize, to undo what had happened. And, more disturbingly, he wanted to see her again. One evening, as Ethan scrolled through Instagram to kill time, a familiar glint of gold caught his eye. It was the necklace he had found on his pillow, left behind by Sophia. His heart jumped as he clicked on the profile. The girl in the photos looked like Sophia, same delicate features, same beautiful eyes. She's on Instagram, Ethan murmured to himself, relieved to have found her. He wasted no time. He sent her a direct message. I want to talk. Please call me. Maya, the real owner of the account, saw the message late that night. She furrowed her brows as she read it. Who's this? She muttered, looking at the man's profile. His pictures screamed wealth, cars, mansions, yachts. Then she noticed a detail that froze her hand mid-scroll, his name was Ethan. She remembered Sophia talking about Ethan, though her sister never revealed much. Still, Maya could connect the dots. Ethan thought she was Sophia. An idea brewed in her mind, one that could change everything for her. She messaged him back. Hi, Ethan. What's this about? The phone buzzed almost immediately with a reply. I need to see you. Can we meet? Maya smiled to herself. It was too good to pass up. She decided to play along. Sure, she replied. When and where? The next day, Ethan and Maya met at a high-end coffee shop downtown. Ethan was dressed sharply in a tailored suit, while Maya wore the best clothes she owned, pretending to be Sophia. As she stepped into the cafe, her heart raced. Could she pull this off? What if he saw through her? Ethan stood to greet her, a small smile on his lips. You came. Thank you. Of course, Maya said sweetly, sitting across from him. She mimicked Sophia's quiet demeanor, knowing little about how her sister had acted that night. Ethan ordered them both drinks, and they began talking. He apologized, his tone genuine and full of regret. I was wrong, Sophia. I ignored your protests, and I can't forgive myself for it. I was in a bad place, but that's no excuse. Maya played along. I understand. It was a mistake for both of us. Let's just leave it in the past. But Ethan shook his head. I don't think I can. You changed something in me, Sophia. I've never felt this way before. Maya's stomach twisted at his words. If only he knew he wasn't talking to Sophia. But she nodded and let him keep talking, her mind calculating her next move. As their conversation continued, Ethan grew more trusting. At the end of their meeting, he handed Maya an envelope filled with money. This is for you, he said. To start a new life. Whatever you want, just take it. Maya's eyes widened at the sheer amount of cash in the envelope. She stammered a thank you and left the cafe, her mind spinning. When Maya returned home, Sophia was at school. She used the money to pay the rent, then packed her things and left. She didn't leave a note, didn't say goodbye. Weeks later, Sophia walked the streets of Lagos, her shoulders slumping from the strain of rejection. She had been searching for a job ever since Maya disappeared. School was no longer an option. She couldn't afford it without Maya's help. With nowhere else to go, she wandered aimlessly, hoping for a miracle. As she turned a corner, she noticed a sign on a building. It was a help-wanted poster for janitors. The company name was unfamiliar, but she didn't care. Sophia walked in, filled out the application, and was told to start the following morning. When she arrived, dressed in worn but clean clothes, she kept her head down as she scrubbed floors. She tried not to think about Maya or the life they had once shared. But fate had other plans. That afternoon, as Sophia cleaned near the main office, a shadow fell over her. She looked up and froze. Standing before her, in a crisp white shirt and slacks, was Ethan. Their eyes locked. You, Ethan whispered, his voice low with disbelief. Sophia's heart raced. What are you doing here? She asked nervously, gripping the mop handle tightly. I should ask you the same, Ethan said, his gaze intense. Why are you working here? What happened to the money I gave you? Sophia frowned. What money? The money I gave you to start over, he said, confusion etched on his face. Realization dawned on Sophia. Maya, she muttered under her breath. What? Ethan asked, stepping closer. Sophia explained everything, how Maya had pretended to be her, how she had taken the money, and how she had abandoned her. Ethan listened, his expression growing darker with each word. When she finished, he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. I can't believe this. Believe it, Sophia said, her voice bitter. It's just how my life goes. Ethan stepped back and looked at her, truly looked at her. Come to my office, he said finally. Sophia hesitated, then followed. Inside, Ethan turned to her. What do you need? Tell me. Sophia shook her head. I don't need charity. This isn't charity, Ethan replied. It's me trying to fix the mess I've caused. Their conversation was interrupted by a phone call. Ethan picked up but kept his eyes on Sophia. Yes, he said, distracted. Schedule a meeting for tomorrow. Sophia turned to leave, but Ethan called after her. Wait. Don't go. Not yet. For the first time, Sophia felt a spark of hope. But it wasn't because of Ethan's offer. It was because, for the first time, she realized she could stand on her own, even in a world that seemed determined to crush her. Life began to improve for Sophia after meeting Ethan at his office. He offered her a better position in the company, an assistant role with manageable responsibilities and a decent salary. It wasn't charity, as Ethan emphasized, it was an acknowledgement of her potential. Still, Sophia was wary of accepting favors from the man who had hurt her so deeply, but necessity made her accept. Over time, their interactions grew less strained, and they settled into a tentative friendship. Sophia moved into a modest apartment in the city with her first few paychecks. She felt liberated for the first time in years, even as memories of her struggles clung to her like shadows. What she didn't know was that Maya was keeping an eye on her from afar. Jealousy burned in Maya's heart as she watched Sophia build a life for herself, one she believed should have been hers. Sophia knocked lightly on Ethan's office door and stepped in when he called her. Ethan looked up from his desk and smiled warmly. "Ah, Sophia. Just the person I needed." She stood by the doorway, her posture hesitant but professional. "You needed me, sir." He waved a hand dismissively. "Ethan, please. None of this, sir, business. Take a seat." Sophia obliged, sitting across from him. "What's the matter?" she asked, smoothing the creases of her simple dress. "Nothing's the matter," he replied. "Actually, I wanted to ask, how are you settling in? Everything going okay with your job?" She nodded, her expression cautious. "Yes, everything's fine. Thank you for the opportunity." He hesitated before speaking again, his tone softer. "Sophia, I owe you an apology, not just for what happened between us, but for how I handled it afterward. I didn't do enough to make things right, and I'm sorry for that." Sophia studied him. Over the past weeks, she had seen a different side of Ethan, one that was thoughtful and empathetic. Still, she wasn't ready to let her guard down entirely. "It's in the past," she said simply. Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes the past doesn't stay where it belongs." Before Sophia could respond, his desk phone buzzed, and their moment was interrupted. She excused herself and returned to her desk, not noticing the figure lurking just outside the building. Maya stood there, her lips curled into a bitter smile as she watched Ethan through the glass walls of his office. Maya's jealousy and anger only grew as she thought about Sophia's newfound success. In her mind, it wasn't fair. She was the one who had worked her body to the bone, who had sacrificed her dignity for years, only for Sophia to now walk into a better life thanks to Ethan's guilt and pity. Maya felt abandoned and betrayed by the very person she had fought to protect. Her emotions reached a boiling point one evening when she saw Sophia and Ethan together outside his home. Sophia had come by to drop off a file Ethan had forgotten at work, and their conversation had turned casual. They stood near the front door, laughing softly about something. From the shadows, Maya watched as Ethan lightly touched Sophia's arm, and Sophia didn't pull away. "That little witch," Maya hissed under her breath. "She thinks she can take everything from me." Consumed by rage, Maya devised a cruel plan to take revenge on both Ethan and Sophia. She didn't just want to ruin their lives, she wanted to destroy the bond they were forming. Maya contacted a group of thugs she knew from her days on the streets, offering them a hefty payment for their cooperation. "I want you to teach Ethan a lesson," Maya told the group over the phone. "Make him regret thinking he could treat people like toys." The men agreed, but Maya made one thing clear. No permanent damage. Just scare him. Ethan's schedule rarely changed. Every evening, he left the office at the same time and took the same route home. On a humid Wednesday night, the thugs lay in wait. As Ethan's car came to a stop at a red light, two masked men jumped out of the shadows, smashing the driver's side window and dragging him out. The driver, frightened, fled, leaving Ethan alone with his attackers. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, struggling against their grip. "Someone wants you to pay," one of the men growled. Ethan's protests were silenced as they shoved a cloth over his mouth, the strong chemical scent forcing his body to go limp. He was thrown into the trunk of another car and driven deep into the forest. When Ethan woke up hours later, his head throbbed, and his body was tied tightly to a tree. It was dark, the only sounds the rustle of leaves and the distant howl of wild dogs. Back at her apartment, Sophia grew worried when Ethan didn't answer her calls. It was unlike him to not check in, especially when they had work-related deadlines approaching. Her worry turned to panic when she called his office and his assistant informed her that Ethan hadn't been seen since he left for home the previous night. Sophia's mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Finally, out of desperation, she dialed Maya's number. "Hello, Maya." Sophia's voice trembled. "Sophia," Maya replied coolly. "It's been a while. I need your help. Ethan's missing. He hasn't been home since last night." Maya smirked, though her voice was coated in fake concern. "Oh, that's terrible. Are you sure he didn't just leave for a quick trip?" "No," Sophia said, pacing her apartment. "I know something's wrong." "Well, I hope you find him soon," Maya replied with mock sincerity. "Let me know if I can do anything." When she hung up, Maya's laughter filled the room. Now she'll understand what it feels like to lose. For 2 days, Ethan remained tied to the tree, his body weakened and his spirit crushed. Hunger gnawed at him, and dehydration made every breath painful. He screamed for help, his voice echoing through the empty forest. Just when he was about to give up, the sound of voices reached his ears. "Over here!" Ethan shouted, using every ounce of strength he had left. A group of hunters emerged from the trees, their eyes widening as they spotted him. They quickly untied him and helped him to their truck. "What happened to you, sir?" one of them asked. "I was kidnapped," Ethan croaked. "Please, call the police." At the hospital, Ethan told the police everything he could remember. Investigations quickly led to the men who had attacked him. When they were apprehended, one of the men spilled the truth: Maya had hired them. Sophia was devastated when she heard the news. She felt betrayed and humiliated. She visited Maya in jail, her face pale and her voice trembling. "How could you do this, Maya? He could have died." Maya leaned back against the chair, unrepentant. "Why do you care? You're just using him to live a life you don't deserve." "I never wanted this life," Sophia shouted. "I just wanted us to survive. But you ruined everything." Maya sneered. "You ruined everything the moment you became his favorite." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes as she stood to leave. "Enjoy the life you've chosen, Maya. I'm done trying to save you." After Ethan was discharged from the hospital, he and Sophia grew closer. They supported each other through the pain caused by Maya's actions, eventually finding solace in one another. Ethan confessed his feelings for Sophia, and this time, she didn't pull away. Months later, they got married in a simple ceremony attended by close friends. 2 years after, they welcomed a baby boy into their lives, naming him Noah. As Sophia held her son in her arms, she looked at Ethan, tears of happiness in her eyes. "I finally feel like I'm home," she whispered. Ethan kissed her forehead. "You've always been home for me." Moral of the story: jealousy and greed destroy everything, but forgiveness and love have the power to rebuild and heal.